Oh, hello YouTubers. Alright, well here's a video on a purchase I picked up on Sunday. It's now Tuesday. Been working on this since Sunday night, I think it was. And also the amp, which I've got in a previous video. That's now done. Alright, so we have a realistic TRC-449, which is based on which is a Cobra 138 chassis. This was released around 6 months after the Cobra 138. Realistic held off on their production, and this is the Australian version. Okay, from memory they were originally 18 channels, but then in the later models they came out in the full 40s, released in the early 1980s. At the time, this radio, not a lot was understood about it, being an 858 chassis, but as time went on, people grew to love these in Australia as a very responsive, very good signal-to-noise ratio, and just a lovely, very reactive receiver. Now, if we compare that to the GE B model here, the receiver used to be wrongly classified as dead. But what we know as time went on is that the GE versus the Uniden chassis, the GE had a better crystal filter in it, and it was able to separate the noise from band noise slightly better than the 138 chassis. But the 138 chassis was a favourite of DX's because of its ability to pick up very hard to hear stations. Alright, I'll just take the covers off. But as we can see, the bad side of this, it had a security bracket on the top of it, which a lot of Australian radios did. It's got some damage to the top of the fascia, which people did for, they put in typically their license numbers. CBs were very expensive back in the day, and there was a high amount of theft from vehicles. Alright, so it's got all the typical features, obviously volume, clarifier, RF gain. This had a dimmer on the squelch knob, and the mode selector and channel selector. Wood grain bottom finish. Now this finish here is a satin chrome. The US version of this was a high chrome finish. So there are two of these models, and the chrome version didn't get sold by Tandy Electronics back in the day. It was this version that did. And that's how you can tell whether a version came from the USA or it was manufactured for the local market. So what needed to be done with this radio? Alright, so this radio was in quite poor condition. It was purchased as not working. I had to travel a long way to get this. The goal was to restore. The meter was the first task. Now, this meter was not working. It was pretty hard, one of the most challenging to get working. I didn't do a video on it because there were a lot of harsh words said about this meter. But gradually I was able to get it to work, and it works quite responsively. All right. On top of that, I found a few dry joints in the radio. The power was down to 3 or 4 watts on SSB. So did an alignment. It was all very reactive, and now it's performing as what it should. I'll just open it up and spin it over. Okay, does it now look like the Cobra 138? We've got the speaker in the middle. That's hiding all of the RF tuning stages. You can see down the back there. You can see the 858 up here. 40 channel selector, PLL, all the tuning points. As you can see, it's quite a nice, neat radio. It's not a virgin. This radio has seen a few repairs in its life. Interesting that I mentioned earlier the release of the 138. As Cobra rushed their unit to market, it was full of a lot of errors from the factory, and over the course of the first 6 months, a lot were sent back to the factory. The beauty of the realistic and other similar chassis were that they got the benefit of all of the updates that were sent in by either the factory getting done, or ham radio operators, or complaints from CBers. So this radio here ended up being quite a desirable radio back then, even though it wasn't picked up by enthusiasts at the time as being such. They wanted the brand name Cobra. Alright, I'll just switch it over, flick it over. Okay, this is the PCB side, as you're all aware. I'll just use the plastic pointer of one of my pens. I've not scrubbed this PCB. Where I see work that has been done is obviously in and around the finals here. A good sign, and you've got to replace it and remove it, is all the glue to the capacitors. Specifically this green cap here, which causes a lot of intermittent TX or RX. So you need to lift that, clean it, and do the solder joints, redo them, reflow here. There's the dreaded relay. So remove all of the solder, reflow, and then just progressively go through the board. Interesting, this one has no failed caps in it. I've gone through it and there's not even any smell of caps. The area that I normally have to go through and redo is on the audio IC side down here. So remove, check for any cracks on the PCB, and then reflow, and any of the headers. Check obviously the synthesizer side all around here. But as you can see, there's not a lot of new shiny solder, but there's certainly some solder that has been changed. Now, a lot of this is factory. So we see in and around the relay, we can see components that have been removed and added, and up the front, in and around the PLL, they did mods on the caps and things like that. All right, so that's your lot. That's the Australian delivered realistic TRC-449 40 channel CB radio, and it's working extremely well. All right, that's your lot, guys. Remember, comment, like, and subscribe. Oh, geez, I forgot to tell you something. How do I restore the dial indicators on each of the switches? Well, I use a 1.5 millimeter tip, and I've got them in white, yellow, and red. I still need to get an amber one. And I drop that in there, and they come up looking like new. As you can see, all the pointers are strong and bright, and I do that to most radios where the paint has been removed or it's dulled. With these, they go yellow, and you could be fooled to think that the originals were yellow, but they weren't. They were a nice red. And again, this is just one of the pens that I use. Oh gee, it's a message from the CCP in China. Anyway, I buy these in a quantity, and they work out quite well. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.